Hello everyone and welcome to day 7 of my 30-day tidying challenge. This is a challenge that I created 2 years ago that's based on Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. By now you're aware that I actually did this challenge 2 years ago and I'm reposting the videos on this channel along with little updates within each video. The update for this particular video is going to come right now, and on day 7 we are finished with the clothing category and we're moving into the next category, which is books. I just have a couple of updates before we get right into the footage. The first one being I have not experienced any clutter rebound in this category. I am very good about not purchasing physical books anymore. I mainly borrow books from the library. I was borrowing physical books, but now I'm just borrowing books virtually, either to read on my iPad or to listen to via audiobook. I am picking up some magazines here and there. I discovered recently that I really enjoy curling up on the couch with a magazine, usually just a free magazine. Once I'm done reading them, I recycle them right away. I don't really bother keeping any piece of the magazine anymore. If I'm interested in something, I'll just take a photo of it, and even then, sometimes I just trash the photo afterwards. I think it's just the act of gathering and collecting and keeping that's something that really appeals to me for whatever reason. It's not really having the item later, it's just the act of keeping it. The second update is that I do store books in various places in our wall unit, but I use them more as like decorative features. So they kind of have a dual purpose of being a book that I would read and a book that I could use to decorate. So most of my books actually aren't in vertical storage. I do have maybe 1 or 2 shelves where the books are stored in that way. The other books are really stored in piles because I find that looks a lot better in our wall unit, and it becomes kind of like a decorative capsule within one of the shelves in our wall unit. So I've been enjoying doing that, and that hasn't caused any issues because the stacks are relatively small. So if I do want a book that's, say, on the bottom, it's really easy to get to. So that is it for the update. Let's jump right in to the day 7 footage that I recorded a couple years back. For the past 6 days, we've been tidying everything in the clothing category, and now we're ready to move on to the next overall category, which is books. I've only allocated 1 day in this 30-day challenge to books because my collection is pretty pared down. If you still have a really big collection of books, you may want to spend more time in this area. You can adjust the 30 days to still stay on track, or of course you can extend the challenge beyond the 30 days. I know a lot of us have trouble letting go of books, and I really had a difficult time with this when I initially did the KonMari Method around 4 years ago, but of course I didn't get all the way through. I did go through books though, and I let go of a huge number of books. I used to buy and hoard a lot of books. If I loved a book, I figured I would read it again because when I was little, I would reread the same book over and over and over again. But now in my adult life, I find that there are other books that I want to read, and I very rarely go back to rereading a book that I did in the past. I'm happy to have read a book, to experienced it, and then move on to the next one. I've also pared down on the number of books I'm keeping that I think I will read one day. This passage in The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up really resonated with me. Marie Kondo writes, "For books, timing is everything. The moment you first encounter a particular book is the right time to read it. To avoid missing that moment, I recommend that you keep your collection small." The other thing which I found really interesting is that Marie Kondo has a vignette in her Spark Joy book that talks about this: becoming a person who matches the books you've kept. The energy of book titles and the words inside them are very powerful. In Japan, we say that words make our reality. The words we see and with which we come into contact tend to bring about events of the same nature. In that sense, you will become the person who matches the books you have kept. What kind of book would you want in your bookcase to reflect the kind of person you aspire to be? If you choose which books to keep on that basis, you may find that the course of events in your life changes dramatically. I found this absolutely fascinating and very much in line with the manifestation journal that I've been keeping this year, a lot of the visualization exercises I've been doing, and it really makes sense to me. As I'm going through my books, I am trying to keep that top of mind. Today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all of our books off of our shelves and we're gonna place them on the floor. Marie Kondo suggests doing this because when you take a book from its spot on the shelf, you begin to see it with fresh eyes. these. We're gonna put all our books in piles on the floor and we're gonna give them a light tap to wake them up. And apparently this helps with the tidying process. Then we're going to hold each book to see if it sparks joy. We are not going to open any of the books. This was very interesting to me because I guess when you start opening a book and looking through it, or perhaps reading a bit of it, there's that sense that you want to keep it. I stacked the books and magazines in several piles. A pile for books that I wanted to keep, a pile of books that I wanted to donate, a very small pile of books that I intended to give away to specific people. And with these books, I always ask them first. There is absolutely no obligation to take these books. I also had a pile of hubby's books that I was going to set aside for him to go through. And finally, I had a pile of books I was unsure about that I still wanted to review. I know we're not supposed to open any of the books and look inside, but I actually found that this was pretty useful for the books that I wasn't certain about. Some of these books I looked inside and decided to keep. For example, these two books by Shel Silverstein were a couple of my favorites as a child and also growing up, and I started to use them as coloring books. I haven't touched them for years, but opening them just brought me so much joy. Other books though, I opened and I decided to let go of. I decided to break up my Nigella Lawson collection. The danger with having a collection of a particular author or chef or musician is that you tend to go on autopilot mode. Having a huge collection of things that you don't necessarily use or that don't necessarily spark joy individually, even though the artist sparks joy, is kind of a slippery slope because you can build up a huge collection of stuff that is kind of there just by default. For some reason, I'm just in a groove now, and I was pretty certain that I didn't want to keep my entire Nigella Lawson collection. There were a few that I set aside that I flipped through, and indeed I'm going to be letting these go. 3 books in particular, but I am very proud of myself. The other breakthrough today was that hubby has started tidying alongside me. For books, I left him a pile and I explained to him the process. He kind of chuckled at me when I was going through mine. He saw me tapping on the books and he saw me holding each one but not opening them. But I think it sunk in because later on, while he didn't go through the books in the same way, he did open all of them. He ended up letting go of a good chunk, and the photo that I'm showing now are all of the books that remain in his collection. The interesting thing with hubby's books is that I actually gave him a lot of them. Before he started tidying his own books, I mentioned to him, even if I bought it for you, it's okay to let it go. I won't be sad or offended. I won't feel bad. It just depends on how he feels, and to not think about the fact that I gave it to him. Again, I haven't organized everything yet. I basically just put stuff away to get it out of my way because I need to move on to the next day of tidying. But I'm noticing that the shelves are a lot more empty, and I'm hoping I'll be able to figure it out kind of like a jigsaw puzzle by the end, and everything will have its own home. That is going to be it for books and magazines. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know down below if you are tidying alongside me. Again, if you are, I would love to hear your thoughts on the process and how you've been doing. Going to be back tomorrow on day 8 to tidy papers. We won't be tackling sentimental papers at this time, but any other papers that we've squirreled away will be fair game. It's going to be a challenging day, but we will get through it. So I will see you tomorrow on day 8. Until then, please take care and bye for now.